Hello, everybody. I'm JackieKCooper, and my entertainment rundown for today is a special interview with Daniel Silva. Daniel Silva is the author of the new book, just came out, The Order. It's the 20th in his Gabriel Allon series, and we're going to be talking with him one-on-one. So get yourself settled in to enjoy this, because this is really a dream come true for me. He's one of my favorite authors, and I know we're just going to have a great conversation. So settle back, get ready, because here we go. As promised, here is Daniel Silva. This is an extraordinary experience for me. I've been reading your books forever, and now I get to see you and talk to you. So thank you so much for doing this, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure. It's wonderful to meet you. Wonderful to sort of meet you finally. I guess this is what counts as
This is what we've come down to. This is a meeting.
Yeah.
But I have been reading I've read all of the Gabriel Allon books, so that's 20 books of yours that I've read. And then from my understanding, you had 3 other books before that.
Yeah.
But what I want to start off with, because this has always been in my mind, is how did you come up with the concept of Gabriel Allon? Did that just spring out of your head, or you met somebody or some situation?
I think there was a little character in my second and third novels, a former KGB assassin who was working as a professional assassin, and he was actually quite a good watercolorist in his spare time. And I think in many respects, he was sort of the preparatory sketch for Gabriel. And when I was working on the character, I knew I wanted him to have some artistic element to his character. And I just happened to have dinner with a friend of mine who really is one of the world's finest art restorers while I was creating Gabriel, and it just, boom, it clicked. It was one of those bolt from a blue kind of creative moments when I was in the right frame of mind. I said, listen, I have this crazy idea. I'd like you to help me turn this Israeli assassin into an art restorer. Can you help me? And he said, sure. So I spent the next few days in the National Gallery Conservation Laboratory,
right.
Watching the restorers do their work. And the more I learned about restoration, the more it seemed to me that it had characteristics in common with assassination. And if you remember that first Gabriel Allon book, I structured the operation that he was involved in as though it were a restoration. And I was pleased with that book. But I have to say that that a lot of people don't realize this, or they can't imagine that it's true. But he was never supposed to be a series character. He was supposed to appear in one book and one book only, and that is it. And I had to be talked into writing the second book.
Who talked you into it?
My publisher at the time, Phyllis Gran. She actually acquired my next book after that book was published. We had our first meeting. She said, "What are you working on?" I told her my ideas, and she said, "I want a Gabriel Allon book." And I said, "It'll never work." I thought there was too much anti-Israeli sentiment.
Take those words back.
Too much anti-Semitism, frankly, for Israeli character to ever work as a truly mass market character. I didn't think it was possible. She said, "You're wrong, write it." I wrote the next book. It's funny to imagine, but my third book, which introduced Gabriel to the Vatican, was not supposed to be a Gabriel Allon book. When I drew up made the first notes on it, my editor said it must be a Gabriel Allon book. That book became The Confessor. And at that point, I sort of realized I had a series on my hand, but it was a process. And now it's 20 books. That is a long way of saying no one is more surprised by the success of the series than I am, because it was never supposed to be a series to begin with.
But one of the things that impresses me, Daniel, so much about your writing is, like when you created this character, that you made him an art restorer. And even though you said the mindset ties in, it seems to give a balance.
Oh my goodness, it's so important to the character. So look, every book at its core is about restoration, taking something that's damaged and making it right, and that can be something like, um, you know, our relations with Russia or something like that. I mean, everything that Gabriel is about fixing things. Um, uh, Tikkun Olam in Judaism, repair of the world. It is essential to the series. Each story revolves around that notion about restoration, and it also made the fact that he started his career at least as a gunman, as an assassin. It gave that essential balance to his character that made this guy palatable to a broader audience than
Absolutely.
just sort of a male-dominated action thriller special ops kind of series. It created a whole different feel and tone to the series,
Which women also
he,
love.
I beg your pardon?
Which women also love.
Oh, I when I go to an event, I mean, half the audience, if not more, is female.
Yes.
And I write my stories differently as a result of his character. And the Gabriel Allon allows me to do, many different types of novels. I can write a straight counterterrorism book like The Black Widow, a straight spy story, and then turn around and put him in a setting like the Vatican. He's just a different type of character, and there are very few characters like that out there.
But The Order, which I think is one of your best books, and most authors who've written a series like this are kind of on a downward slope. You're on an upward slope. I don't know. You just get better and better. But this book is a thriller. It's got funny lines in it. It's got a tremendous love story in it. It's got the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Israeli, action figure. It's a combination of everything, but it meshes together so well. I think the love story in this is one of the most critical elements of the book. I don't want to give anything away.
You can't give too much away, but it is. One of the things I had to do with the plot, and you and I are gonna speak in code, and we're gonna speak over the heads of the audience a little bit. I had to
Because I don't
finish
want to reveal.
I won't. I had to finish up some of the tougher action sequences in order so the final day could revolve around the notion of this unrequited love between these two characters on this very important day, the first day of the conclave. I just love both those characters.
I do too.
And it just had this bittersweet, both beautiful quality to it about someone who's willing to make that kind of sacrifice. And look, in terms of fiction, I've always found that unrequited love is always a little more interesting than the boy actually getting the girl, or vice versa. That painful longing is just always a little more satisfying.
When I read a book, there are usually phrases that leap out at me that I think, oh my gosh, that's just such a wonderful phrasing of words. And if you get one in a book, at least I feel I'm lucky. I mean, I'm talking about something to just reset. You've got 3 in The Order.
Okay.
Two of them are very romantic to me. The first one is Gabriel and Chiara are speaking on the phone. It's late at night, and he says to her, "Close your eyes. I want to hear you sleeping." I just thought that was the most tender, romantic thing possible. And it was like, oh my gosh, the whole book is worth it just for that line.
Hmm.
Then the second thing is somewhere one character says to Gabriel, "You have the perfect marriage," and he says, "No, I have the perfect wife."
Perfect. Don't confuse the two. Is his follow-up line.
Yeah, which again, that was just such a great line to me.
I like that line.
Third, there are others in it, but third, it's when he and the head of the Swiss Guard are going into a dramatic situation, and the Swiss Guard, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't quote you, but I'm paraphrasing. The Swiss Guard says something like, "Let me go, God will protect me." And in other words, and Gabriel says, "We have the same God."
Yeah.
And that was just.
He says that but it's the same God, but that's a discussion for another time because they had to go save a life.
Yes.
we won't discuss this now, but it's the same God.
But those were just such insightful, very small things that make your book so readable.
Look, I try to hold the scene count down in a novel. And then when I settle on the scenes, I block a novel rather than outlining. I just block it out. And I pick the scenes that I want, and then the plot elements will flow through the scene as required. But the scene itself and the interaction with the characters is how I plot the book. And then I write each scene to its fullest. I don't have a lot of sort of 3 and 4 paragraph quickie scenes, boom, boom, so-and-so picked up the phone. And that's not the way I do it. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the way I go about it. And the other thing is that it may sound crazy, but these characters live in my head, okay? I've lived with them for a long time. I spend more time in their world than I do in this world. And oftentimes I just feel a bit like a stenographer more than a writer. And with a character like Gabriel and supporting cast like Luigi Donati and his Gabriel's wife and all these other characters in this series, I just sometimes feel like I'm just sort of eavesdropping and writing down what they say. I know that sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't sound crazy at all. Not to me. And what I get from that too is one of the things I remarked on in my review was the consistency of Gabriel and even each supporting character. You have to know them. They have to live in your head for them to be so consistent, book after book after book after book. That just amazes me that you embody each character in the book in a consistent way.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't mean to imply that I don't work hard at it. That's for sure. And I will finish this book tour, I guess tomorrow. Book tour such that it's a different kind of book tour this year. And I will start to work, and I will work every day until April 1st, getting the next one done. I take it very seriously. I work hard at my craft. I try to do at least 1 or 2 things better each year. I do know that I have a series that I'm proud of, and that there are some big and important books in that series. I just try to make sure that every new book is at least a worthy successor to its predecessors.
Well, like I said, to me, you get better and better and better, which, if you stayed the same, I'd be fine, but you get better.
Thank you.
Your books are so timely. I mentioned when I reviewed the book, either you are the best prognosticator possible, but you're reading the book and I'm thinking, he wrote this probably months ago, and it's things that are happening right now. The rise of anti-Semitism, in certain areas. You mentioned the pandemic, just so many things and it's that way in each of your books. There's always something that is right there on the verge of happening right now.
Well, one of the things that I do when I'm thinking about a book. So these are contemporary thrillers. They're set basically in sync with our calendar. It's a fictitious world, sort of one step removed from our world. Okay, but it's a parallel universe where things happen slightly differently. But I do have to anticipate the environment into which I'm going to be publishing. And so, I mean, the book I'm working on right now, or starting to work on, the outcome of our presidential election is probably going to influence that book. And I sort of have to commit right now as I start. I can always change it, but who's going to be the next president? What's the global mood going to be like? What are relations between Israel and the United States going to be like? So I have to anticipate what it's going to be like when I publish in the summer. And sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong.
Most of the time you get it right.
Most of the time I get it right, luckily. But look, I have a wife who's a journalist. I used to be a journalist. I'm a reformed journalist. These are issues that I care deeply about and pay a great deal of attention to. And I think that, look, someone in my position can't be behind the news, okay? If I publish something and it's dated in some way,
right,
it's going to feel wrong. So I need to just be just one step ahead of the break of the wave.
Let me ask you this: your wife, Jamie Gangel, is a prominent reporter for CNN, and but with the books, her being in the news, her reporting the news, how much of a collaborative effort is it? Do you run the books by her, discuss certain events with her?
She's my first reader and editor. So she line edits my books for me. She is my literary agent, my business manager. She's a full partner in this business. Invaluable.
Well, I thought that was your answer because
you're
a team.
We're a team. She's been editing me since the beginning. I also retain the services of a dear friend who's always credited in the book, Louis Toscano, was editing me when I was a 24-year-old, cub reporter for United Press International. I just like having a group of trusted people around me to read my material.
Sure. This book is important because, to me, of the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Jewish state, etc. And it's a key element in the book. We won't, again, go into all the fine details of that. You were raised Catholic, correct?
Correct.
And then converted to Judaism when you and Jamie married. Is that? Did I do my research right?
Yeah.
So
it's
you've had
a tiny bit more a little more complicated.
Yeah, that was you're raised Catholic. You turned. Yeah.
Okay.
But do you think that gave you more insight, having been exposed to so much of your personal self in the religion?
Not only insight, but look, this is the world as I want it to be. To heal this ancient breach between Christianity and Judaism, Catholic Church and Judaism. This partnership between Gabriel and Luigi Donati is wonderful. It's not a spoiler to say, because it's in the flap copy, that Pope Paul VII, Pope who my fictitious Pope, I just loved him. It dies in chapter 1 of this book. But sure, I have tremendous insight. In this case, this book explores the roots of anti-Semitism. Many people don't realize where it comes from. What is the source of anti-Semitism? And the source of anti-Semitism is actually the Gospels, and the Gospels' depiction of Jesus's torture and execution. And I'm someone who's steeped in the Gospels. I think I know them as well as most Christians, and so I bring a sense of.
Well, it's just so well put in the story.
Thank you.
It really is, and like you say, that
deal
relationship
with
between Donati and Gabriel is just, it's another love story of two men who respect and admire.
They have bumped into each other and had scenes here and there. But one thing I did in this novel is if it were a movie, it would be a buddy movie, because they go out into the field together, and they spend a lot of time together. They take a road trip together. They spend much more time together in this novel, and they're fantastic together.
Butch and Sundance in the modern time. Daniel, I've gotten responses to my review, and I've advertised the fact that I was going to be interviewing you, and I keep getting this thing that people seem to think that the order foreshadowed the end of the Gabriel Allon series.
And not at all. If anything, it foreshadows that I'm going to put Gabriel in a place, and you and I are going to discuss it, but I'm going to put him in a place where he can continue how do I phrase this without spoiling anything? Where the series will continue after he leaves the office. So that the clock is running on how long he'll stay chief. He will retire from the office at some point. He must, and then resume his life as a married family man and at an art restorer. And undoubtedly, people will come to him with problems. That's why it always works.
And that's been building. In the past few books, you've known that he doesn't want to do this as the head of the office forever. That's not giving anything away.
He is not going to be Ari Shamron. He is not going to be someone who runs the office for a decade or more. Not a chance.
Before we have to end this, I wanted to ask. At one time, I heard that this was possibly they're going to take the books and kind of like Michael Connelly's Bosch series. There was going to be a series about. Any news on that?
Well, I did sell it as a television project. My timing was terrible because I sold it right before the Me Too crisis exploded in Hollywood. Those rights reverted to me, and honestly, every week we're fielding phone calls and interest in making it into a television series. I actually had, I can't say who it was with, but just an incredible meeting last week about it. So I'm cautiously pessimistic that we can get this done. I'm very protective of it, but I'm cautiously pessimistic we can do this.
I don't know what image you have in your mind, but there's an actor who's too old for the role now by the name of Gabriel Byrne. I don't know if you're familiar with his
Gabriel Byrne is my favorite. I love Gabriel Byrne.
To me, is Gabriel Allon. If he were just a little bit younger, he would just be so perfect for the role.
He would be so perfect.
And when I'm reading the books, that's the image that I have in my mind. So
good. I love him. He's one of my favorites.
But I do think that your fans are very devoted fans. I mean, they are avid fans, and they would eat up a good, and everybody I think would feel protective about it. It's got to be just the perfect TV show.
I agree.
So
I agree. So now, I mean, it's this COVID pandemic. This is going to be a problem here for green lighting shows, and when are they going to be able to start shooting again? Under what circumstances can they shoot? How do they put actors together? What happens if your leading man gets sick?
yeah.
If COVID invades your set? I mean, these are going to be difficult issues. So I think Hollywood is hopeful that maybe late spring, early summer, that maybe they can get to work again.
Well, like you
It's going to be
said,
difficult.
Gabriel Allon is a fixer, so we'll just fix that right up.
I wish. That's a big one for him.
Yeah.
Trying to fix a global pandemic. Nightmare.
Your books come out just about on the same day each year.
Correct.
Is there a reason for that, or is it just that it started coming out at that time and you continued it, or does research show that's the best time?
If you look at the publishing calendar, okay, the 52-week grid, most of us, and by that I mean repeating best-selling authors, everyone's sort of in their box. Michael Connelly comes out at a certain time. The Jack Reacher books come out at a certain time. Nora Roberts comes out at a certain time. Danielle Steele I think she's about 4 books a year.
All the time.
Like that. Yeah, but they're in a pattern, and it does help if your readers know when you publish. It's just helpful. It's helpful for bookstores. Everyone it works better when we know where everyone's going to be. And for me, that schedule has worked well. That placement has worked well for me.
It's like it's almost like you're waiting for Christmas to come, so you get your present.
Oh, I mean, no. I mean, my publishing house, they're expecting and preparing to publish me the second Tuesday of July in 2021. That's just how we keep the train moving.
And it keeps us readers on schedule and knowing that we can look for that. That's a great thing. Listen, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to spend time with us. We've got subscribers to this channel all over the world, and they all are fans of Daniel Silva and Gabriel Allon. I was surprised. I've gotten so many people. I announced that we were going to be interviewing you, and there were people all over the world who says, I've got a Daniel Silva who I bought a car from, or I've got a Daniel Silva who went to school with me. And there are a lot of Daniel Silvas out there.
There are. There's the tattoo guy who I guess is involved in some kind of murder. I don't know the story, so that's not me. Yeah, it's a common name.
I thought it was unique.
And yeah, there's a few of us around. It's a Spanish, Portuguese name, and there are quite a few. But luckily, there's only one in publishing. So
I've lived my life with people asking me if I was Jackie Cooper, the child star. So,
what's the answer?
No, no, not at all. But again, Daniel, thank you. I think
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure this was.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I've been a fan, and I've reviewed your books for years and years and years. And, this was one of the big things that I wanted to do, and you fulfill that for me. So thank you. Thank you for your time. And everybody get the order. It's fantastic. So
thank you.
We'll go
Thank you
there.
so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.